This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Heart Mojo with Melinda Smith. And, this podcast almost didn't take place this week because both Melinda and I, as many of you, we are on a journey. And sometimes when you're on that journey, there's roadblocks. And we've hit a couple of them this week, haven't we, Melinda?
We certainly have.
And, as it's getting closer to the holidays, it seems like we all are getting a little tired. 2021 is coming to an end, and we all had
Thank
this
God.
great anticipation about it. And it hasn't been as bad as 2020, but it's taken a toll on us. So I know this year you've had lots of obstacles, and
Just a few.
you're getting through them.
I am. I get through my challenges. Like I tell everybody, if I can get through my challenges, I know you can get through anything that challenges you. I promise. But there are days, there are days where I question my own words. And I've certainly had many of those this year. So,
Well, and that's something that I think we really need to talk about in this podcast, is that some of us walk around with this big smile on our face. Everybody thinks everything is perfect. In fact, I remember my mother always telling me, don't wear your heart on your shoulder. Just get out there and, be your best. And sometimes that's not the right thing either.
well, remember the song Smile Though Your Heart Is Breaking?
Yes. Yep.
So I think many people do that. How this whole podcast started was because I was working through my cancer journey, and I started making posts and videos, mostly for me, to be honest, to help me focus, to help me get through. And that's how we got to where we are today. And we threw back and forth without a guest. Do we do this? Because I haven't been the guest for a while. So I'm kind of my own guest, right?
Right.
But I think it's important because this time of year is stressful without extra things, without COVID, without job changes, without all the things, other health issues, that it's, we need to talk about it a little bit. And I really want people to understand that you and I, that we get on every couple of weeks and we talk about the motivational piece and how people get through and share that. We have our moments too. We're human.
And, sometimes I know I'm really good at hiding those feelings. I typically do anywhere from 3 to 4 podcasts a day with other podcast hosts as well. And, in between, I sometimes am sitting here thinking, why am I doing this? I'm tired. I have other things I need to do. But at the same time, I get something out of this. And what I get out of it is, as I listen to your story and somebody else's story, I can understand that, what? It's okay to feel not so great sometimes.
Right.
It's okay not to have that perfect Thanksgiving picture up on Facebook.
Well, I think we all we try to work through, push through. If we keep busy, I know I've been guilty of that. If someone asks me to do something, sure, I'll do it. Sure, I'll do it. And then sometimes I think, oh, what did I sign up for here? I should not be doing this. But because I made a promise, I do it anyway. Instead of possibly saying to that person, look, whether it's a family person, a friend, or even at work, saying, look, I really need a break. And I find myself doing that now. I have a new job. It's those of you who saw my post on Facebook. And I love what I do. I'm back working with seniors. It's so much fun to be around them, but it's work. And, I do a lot of different hats. I hold a lot of different hats there. And I'm so grateful to be there. And I need to work. I'm not independently wealthy. I know a lot of you think I am, but I'm not. And I'm working through that. But I'm accepting things and doing a lot of extra work that maybe I should be saying no to sometimes.
Well, and that's something that a lot of women don't know how to use that word. Okay. Or we use it in the wrong context.
Mhm.
I was talking to Candace Pollock, who does a show with us called The Intentionality Gurus. And one of the things that she talks about in her podcast is that she has always been Candace on demand. She's an
Mhm.
attorney, she's a life coach, she's a sister, she's a friend, and she does so many things. And somebody will say, when can this be done? And she goes, oh, it's already done, because she's on demand. And
Right.
as we talk about this, I think of myself. I'm the same way. I don't always wait for somebody to ask. My
You
husband and I
see it,
just had,
you do it.
my husband and I just had a quick dinner, and our empty dishes were there, and I just jumped up and I put them in the dishwasher.
Mhm.
I could have asked him to do it. I could have left them there for somebody else to do, or I could have left them there for myself to do later. But we are so consistently trying to prove ourselves. And,
Mhm.
I think sometimes we have to give ourselves that break.
Right. Well, honestly, Karen, tonight's an example. We could have canceled. We could have. I thought about it. You thought about it.
Right.
But as we talked today, we decided to go through and have the podcast because it's truly about what this season, it exemplifies this season. You never know when life's going to change. You never know when you're going to get a curveball, and you're saying yes to things maybe you shouldn't. But we both saw the importance of having a conversation about that exact thing. So we had the podcast. Even though you had a quick dinner, I haven't had dinner, but it's okay because, and okay, maybe it isn't really okay, but for me, it's okay because I feel this is really an important topic. I feel that as we go into the holiday season with all the stresses, I want other people to know you're really okay. We all do it. All of us do it.
Well, I also want people to not only hear our words, but I want them to go back to the social media and look at it and take it with a grain of salt. This year I was very lucky. I got to spend time with family and friends. And typically it's my husband and my younger son and myself sitting at a Thanksgiving dinner that I've put all my power into making. And within 10 minutes, we're done, and
Mhm.
it just seems like, why? But this year I was lucky to be with family. But one thing we didn't do was take a bunch of pictures of us together, of our Thanksgiving table, because I just wanted to remember it in my mind. And I didn't
Mm.
have to put it out there for everyone to see. And yet, I'm still noticing those pictures that are popping up of all the perfect families. And I'm just want you to think about it. Are you really that perfect?
Nope, we're not. Lord knows we're not. But for me, I'm a picture person. I like to have it, even if everybody there isn't always getting along, because I grew up with division in the family. And those pictures mean a lot to me. That's my connection. So for me, maybe not for everyone, but for me, those things are important. We did not do as many as we used to do when my children were little. Oh my God, the camera was attached. They knew to turn and smile the minute they saw mom. So I'm more selective, so I can get one or two moments. I did that for my birthday too. But for me, it's still important. Um, I did put it out on social media. I don't always do that. In fact, my sister yells at me constantly. You take all these pictures and you don't put the family pictures out. But for me, I'm focusing on sharing the challenges and getting through them, not so much my personal family. But I think it's important for people to see that because I'm no different than anybody else watching this podcast. I have good days. I have bad days. I have days where I'm mad as a wet hornet, as my grandma used to say, with everything, whether it's a life challenge, a financial challenge, a medical challenge. job challenge, but I do my best to work through it. And I think that's really the message. It's okay to feel that way. You just don't sit down and wallow in it for a long period of time.
Absolutely. So one of the things that happened regarding this week's podcast, and at first I was angry. I have to admit that we couldn't do it when we were scheduled.
Me too.
Then I got disappointed. Then I started thinking about, hey, it's something just happened. Okay. The person couldn't make it. And I get it because we all have personal issues.
Sure.
And unless we walk in that person's shoes, we don't know exactly why things are changing. And so I went through those stages. Number one, because I knew how important it was for you. I know how important it is for New Cleveland Radio to, be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
But, I finally realized that I just had to let it go because maybe that person said no for good reasons, which can teach me a lesson when I need to say no.
Right. Well, when we canceled, because usually we do our podcast at the beginning of the week, we
Right.
rescheduled for today. And then it also got canceled fairly early in the day, but still today. And in my head, this is when you and I went back and forth. Do we do this? Don't we do this? We should talk about it, talk about the disappointments, the plans that happen, but it's all okay. But as I shared with you when I got home, it worked out. I had something that would have taken me over that podcast time at work. So somebody was watching over and said, okay, this really isn't the moment for that podcast.
Right.
But I promise you, when we get him on, y'all will enjoy him because he's really good.
Well,
really good motivational person.
And again, it's, we have to start making those assumptions in our heads. Those little voices that take us back to disappointments when we were kids, and we read into things. And I know when I stopped doing that, I'm a much happier person. And I allow it to cloud me up like it did this week. And again, I was off last week for the holidays. First time I've ever taken a whole week off.
Wow.
So it was like amazing to me. But here I came back, and Monday I was ready to get back into things, and there was that disappointment. And it was like my mind just went to being angry at first. And I think that's normal, but we don't have to be there. We don't have to stay there. And
Right.
I'm so glad that I was able to work through it and go, okay, I was angry. I'm disappointed. Life happens. And so what did we do? We retooled things for today to share that with this audience, to let them know that, you know what? You have to let life happen.
And we are resilient women. We can pick up the pieces and move forward. And I think most people don't give themselves credit for that. They do it unconsciously. They just automatically do it. But then they beat themselves up because it didn't happen perfectly. It didn't happen the way it was supposed to. But honestly, most of us, if given a situation where the dinner isn't perfect, we go through it and we get it done. And no one would know the difference unless you tell them, right?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And no one would know the difference about this tonight, except we decided to talk about it because it's just a piece of a bigger puzzle of everything that's been going on, all the disappointments we've had over the last almost 2 years. Because when the president said today, oh, we're going to keep the mask on when we travel till March of 2022, that will be 2 years.
Yep.
Now, I know when it started, we're all like, nah, that's never going to happen. It's going to be a week. We're going to be done. And then we all dealt with that disappointment, that change in our life. I mean, our life exploded or imploded because we were all thrown inside. We had to learn to work together. We had the divorce coach on because there are a lot of divorces that happened because people couldn't work together. Their life kept them so busy, they never saw those issues until they were forced to see the issues. So for me, with everything, I think it's helped me learn something like this. I can't sweat it. Yes, I was aggravated, but I'm really working hard to let those things go, like with work, there's only so much I can do in the day. And I would work and work and work and work at previous jobs until I was ready to drop. And I have to start to be better to myself and say, if I can look in the mirror and know that I did the best I could do today, that's all I could do. And tomorrow's another
Absolutely.
day and we'll start again
Absolutely.
and we'll get through it. And so that's what we did with this. We thought, well, we have a great podcast coming up next week with The Gathering Place. And that's going to be very interesting and important because it's a very important nonprofit in our Cleveland area. But today, this was equally important, I think. I really do. I think it was important to talk about that, talk about disappointments. So we can go back a little bit because we have a little bit of time
Sure.
about this year. So when you look back at your year, besides COVID, because we all know COVID is a pain in our dupa, what would you look at and say, oh my God, this was a challenge, but yet you've persevered through it?
So this year I thought going into 2021 that, my health issues from 2020 were resolved. And I found each month there was just like one more little niche that I had to take care of. And I will say that I tried to blow it over for a long time. It was like, oh, this is no big deal. This is no big deal. But my challenge has been that none of my health issues are severe, but they're annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And from having cataract surgery to having pelvic floor treatment to finding out that we don't know why I'm having a breathing issue, but none of them are terrible things. I don't have a disease. I don't have, anything like that. But sometimes, you just want to crawl into a little hole and say, why me?
I get it.
I know you do. And there are people out there, and I saw on Facebook today, another musician friend of ours passed away, and unexpectedly.
Wow.
And when I read it, it was like, this can't be happening. He's 10 years younger than me and in good health, but it happens. And it's when I see those things that I realize I can get through my little challenges.
Right.
But my little challenges on certain days feel
Are
like,
big.
oh, it's
They're
Mount
big.
Everest,
Right.
and you're slipping. So we have to be kinder to ourselves. That's the biggest challenge.
And kind to other people to know that they all have challenges too. I do think I work very hard to remember that. That's maybe why I say yes too many times in a day. But I know that I would like sometimes, and there are people that do. So I know I have many people out here who watched me for the last several years go through my cancer journey. And man, you've been there for me. You send me messages, you've sent me all sorts of things and helped me get through that process. And for that, I am eternally grateful. But as I move forward, things go past, right? And some days now I have new health challenges, and some of you know that from a post that I made when I was diagnosed and in April. And it's extremely challenging. And with my cancer, it was like, I'm going to fight this battle. I'm going to do this. I can win this, because there's a potential to be okay for it not to come back. This is not like that. This is a different animal entirely. It's a different thing that I have to face and work on. So many days I ignore it, which is not necessarily the smart thing to do. So we shouldn't always ignore our issues. But I notice that it's in the back of my mind. And I notice it most at night. I bet you some of you tonight, it's 8 o'clock and we're doing this. And tonight when you lay down and put your head on the pillow, those demons start going through your head. You're frightened, you're worried. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Whether it's a health scare, whether it's a financial issue, whether it's a relationship issue or a job issue. God knows I've had that my entire year. There's my year in a nutshell for everybody. I've had all of those things from January of 2021 through. But I'm here to say I'm still here, and you are too. So if you start to really look at your situation, and as sucky as it might be, you got to find the good. And that's what I try to do every day. So when the demons start going through my head, I try to stop and go, okay, what good thing happened to me today? Oh, this was good. Oh, I really liked meeting that person. Oh, that was a nice person. Oh, I'm so glad I helped that person today. And that kind of turns me a little bit. That's what we did with this podcast. We decided we're going to switch the light. We're going to turn it to a different direction and look at the positive. Talk about these types of subjects.
And there, one of the things that I learned over the years, and especially since I've been doing the podcast, is I look out my office window, and when the sun is really out there shining, I really absorb it through the window. When it's cloudy and dreary, I look out there and I know that above all those clouds, the sun is shining.
Mm-hmm.
And just, taking that in is a good feeling. And that one good feeling turns to another.
Mm-hmm.
And, I wasn't like this growing up. I wasn't like this as an adult most of my life. When something upset me, it took over. And I had to crawl out of those dark holes. I didn't know it was depression.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I had suffered from. And I still suffer from it, but I have learned how to get out of the dark hole. And I think those of you who are listening, if you say, no, that doesn't work for me, try it. Try
Mm-hmm.
something. There is something good about yourself, about your surroundings, that can make you feel good, even if it's only for a couple of seconds.
Right. Well, if you think of an airplane, so when an airplane is taxiing the runway, you're going through your day, and then all of a sudden you start to lift, and it might be bumpy, and you got to get through the clouds, and it's kind of anxiety. Some people love that, right? Maybe those are the anxiety junkies, but that's always the most fearful time for me. Oh my God, we're taking off. But then you get above the clouds and the sun is there, or the moon if it's at night, and you're going, wow, this is beautiful. This is great. And you live in that moment of being in the sun or being in the stars. And I think that's kind of how to think about it. I had a friend who's a pilot tell me once, because I used to have a job where I traveled a lot. So I was on the road 3 weeks out of a month in an airplane all the time. And I hit some pretty bad weather, turbulent weather over time. And I became very anxious. And so what he said is, think about the bumps like waves on the ocean. The boat is going over that. That's all it is. It's like waves on the ocean, and you're going up. And when you get away from the waves, you're smooth sailing, usually closest to the shore. So sometimes you have to leave the safety of shore. You have to go through those bumps to get to the brighter piece, right? The smoother sailing if you're a sailor, or the brighter piece if you're flying. And I remember that every single time I get on an airplane. Every time. So it helps me get through that anxiety. And actually, it's harder. We all think, oh my God, there's snow. We shouldn't fly in the snow or bad weather. It's actually better to fly then than in hot weather, because it affects the plane differently, and you have a lot more waves and things like that. So for those of you who will be flying, like I will be flying in January, don't worry about it. You're getting through it.
Interesting.
But it's a nice philosophy for life. I really do think about that.
Well, we allow ourselves to sort of take in the bad rather than the pleasure. And I think it's just something that is human nature, but I'm learning from so many people, and especially those who have come out and admitted that, they too suffer from depression, anxiety. The more we talk about it, we understand how normal this is.
Right. It's part of life.
Yet we have to find those moments that make us feel good, and we can't deny them. And that's one of the things I did for a very long time. I'd be feeling really down and out, and then all of a sudden, that revelation of something nice, and I think, oh, I can't think about that, and I'd push it down. No, let it happen. Let it happen. Let it take you to the next level.
Mhm.
Because it's going to make you better. It's going to make you stronger. We don't have to think about the dark all the time.
I also think it's easy to focus on the negative. Negative gives you something to talk to with somebody to bond with. Oh my God, this, and I do it. Oh, I know I do it. For my friends who are out there watching me, they're going, "Oh, Melinda, remember that day you made that phone call from the car and you were like, da, 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 da." Once I get it out though, then it's out. And I appreciate my friends who are willing to listen and help me through that, and my family who helps me through that. But it's easy to bond with somebody with negative, and we see a lot of that in our world today. Not so easy to bond with someone who's happy, who looks at the brighter side, who said, yeah, this sucks, but I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to redirect and focus here. Because we grew up in a population or a country where if you talked about the positivity, if you talked about your, the good things that you did, or that it looks bad, you shouldn't be talking about yourself like that. Oh, it sounds better coming from somebody else, or
Right.
whatever. We internalize that. So we don't allow ourselves to enjoy. We don't allow ourselves to enjoy our victories because it's a puritanical thing for us, whether you're Christian or not. It's ingrained in who we are as a people. We should not be talking about the positive things that happen, because if you're superstitious, something bad might happen if you talk about it, right? How
Right.
much Bubba Mycin is that? And then it looks egotistical, and it's really not. It's really recognizing that you do have these valuable pieces to your life, and you should be able to say, hey, I did a great job on that today. Yeah, this sucked. I went through this cancer or this happened, but man, this is awesome. That's how I feel about the podcast. I know I have a lot of supporters out there, but there are people in my life who are not necessarily as supportive. And you know what? I don't care, because I know that there are days where I can make a difference for someone, and that's important to me. So that's something that I can crow about or talk about.
Well, and I think anybody who's out there who can journal,
Mhm.
blog, either do their own podcast or come on as a guest on a podcast, expressing yourself in truth, I think, is what can make us all better people.
Mhm.
Once we understand that we're not alone. Because for so long, I thought I was the only person who didn't have family to spend holidays with. Never understood why, when I invited friends, friends would come to my house, but friends didn't invite me to their houses. And one day I had somebody explain to me why she never invited me to her house. And she said, "You cook better than me, you clean better than me, your house smells better than mine. I'd be embarrassed for you to be in my house." And I looked at her and I said, "Well, that's ridiculous." And she goes, "But that's what I believe." And I had to accept that. If that's what she believes, that's what she believes. And so I'm probably never going to be invited to her house for a holiday or for a meal, but she's still my friend and she's willing to come to my house. And she
Well,
always brings a bottle of wine and flowers. So, hey, yep. So, I've had to learn not to be so judgmental. And that's
but you didn't know
difficult.
she felt that way. Did you? You were thinking, oh, she just doesn't want to invite me. Maybe she doesn't want to do the work. Maybe she doesn't want to spend the money. Maybe she does, those are the things that go through our head. But it
Absolutely.
wasn't that at all. She
Well,
might actually be a little jealous.
and I used to ask the question, why aren't I good enough to be invited to your house?
Right.
It was like, what's wrong with me? And I assumed, never asked, but assumed that she was having other people over. Okay.
She
I
wasn't
don't know
having
why I
anybody
assumed
over.
it. Okay. But she doesn't. Okay.
Mhm.
Because of what she believes. And so it's like, well, that's okay then. I get it.
Think about what you give her by inviting her, how much she probably really appreciates it.
Right.
And you might be making her day where she gets that invitation. She's like, yes, I get to go to Karen's house tonight. Oh my God, it's fun. That kind of thing. Oh, she has the best, brisket around or whatever. I think we forget that. We put all this on ourselves.
Right.
We put all that pressure on, and we never ask a question because we're afraid of the answer.
Oh, absolutely.
So
we're afraid of people telling us that either they don't like us, okay? And I don't know why we assume that, but we do. So we don't want the negative feedback. And yet
right.
we're giving ourselves that negative feedback all the time.
So you'll be inviting her over for another dinner soon. Hey, why haven't you invited me over for dinner? No, I'm just kidding. Actually, we have talked about it in the past, but COVID hit and life changed, and here we are.
Absolutely.
Over a year and a half later, and the podcasts have taken off across the world, and we're still dealing with it. And I think, but we're on the down, right? So a lot of we need to focus on the good things that have come out of it. And there are a lot of good things.
Absolutely.
And honestly, some of the bad things were important to bring to the forefront. So we learn to deal with them. So even in a relationship or a job, maybe that's not where you were meant to be.
Absolutely.
And this brought you there. Just like today, having this podcast cancel, it gave me the time to do what I needed to do at work. I was still stressed, mind you, but not as stressed as I would have been if I knew I had that podcast. And how would I fit that in?
Well,
or cancel it myself.
And I have to be honest with our listeners. Once I knew that we weren't going to be able to do that specific podcast, something came up on my end as well. And I never would have been home by 5 o'clock based on it. We barely got home for a 6 o'clock appointment. And so when I look at it back now, it's like, it was meant to be. It was meant to be this way. And if I had harbored that disappointment, the anger, the disappointment, it would have done me no good. I probably would have made myself upset over it. Knowing me, I would have ended up with the migraine. And for what?
Yeah, there wasn't a reason to.
So I think what we've experienced this week has been a lesson that can help many. And it wasn't even that tragic.
Right.
Of the
it
situation.
wasn't. There's so many other more important things that happen. But I think for you and I, and the reason we wanted to share this tonight is because it magnified those issues. It magnified it and it made us look at things differently. And I really wanted to share that. I mean, believe me, I've had a very long several weeks, new job, learning a lot, very busy. And that's a good thing, but I'm very busy. And then I had to have my booster shot. So I got my booster shot yesterday, and honestly, I don't feel so great today, but I'm here because this was important to me. I could have said no, but in this instance, sitting here having a little bit of not a lot, but something to just kind of take that edge off, sit here and talk to everybody was important to me. Because as you all are going through your holiday season, whatever holiday you celebrate or no holiday that you celebrate, but this time of year just ends up to be stressful for everyone. You need to remember that. Redirect, look at why it happened. Maybe that's what we did. And then we looked at the good piece that came out of it. And I think if you can redirect yourself over the holidays, whether it's family or friends or work or financial, you're good enough. It's all good enough, right?
Absolutely.
You can work through it. like I said, if I get through my challenges, I know you can get through anything that challenges you. And this has been I've had many challenging years. Those of you who have been with me for a while know that, but this year is maybe not the surgery and the cancer piece with treatment, but it rivals that in so many ways. And it's not visual. Well, some of it's visual if you see me, but for the most part, when you look at me, do I look that way? Do I look like I have a major health life issue? No, I don't think so. So you never know what that person is going through. And that was another piece I wanted to put in here. I mean, I had a crappy day as far as feeling not well. I'm dealing with this forever illness now, but I'm here. I'm here. I'm here because I wanted to be. I'm here because I wanted to share that. I'm here because Karen and I wanted to talk about this to help everybody who's listening to go through.
Well, I surely hope we have helped. We would
too.
love to hear how your journey is going and bringing it on to Heart Mojo. We have many, many more sessions to go through, which I'm really excited about. I've sent a couple of prospect guests to Melinda, and I'm looking forward to us talking to them and sharing their journeys. And one woman in particular who suffered, domestic abuse way beyond what any person should ever have experienced. And now she is a podcaster, an advocate, and she has just changed her life around. She will never be abused again.
And she shares that with other people to make them
Absolutely.
stronger, right?
Absolutely is. And she's a delight. So I encourage you, when you share your story, you feel so much better. It's not about, as my mother used to say, hanging your dirty laundry out for your neighbors to see. It's about sharing the truth and getting the comfort from your own words.
And empowering yourself
Absolutely.
to move forward. So this year we're excited about it. Usually it's not just me and Karen. We started the podcast a few years ago that way. And we thought it was important to do that now. And I want you all, if you make sure you follow the page, make sure that you see what's coming up. If you have ideas, share them. Send me a message, put it in the link below this. Let us know what type of topics you really want to hear or you think is important to discuss, because we're open to do that. We've covered many issues, from caregiver issues to chronic pain, cancer, and then we've had people who've had business issues, because we realize that not everybody, thankfully, doesn't have a health issue or maybe a financial. They're starting a new business and they want to know the challenges, or they want to know how they got through COVID. But I really want to give you what helps you. So if you could let Karen or I know, we would greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we'll do this again next week. And you said, who are you going to be hosting?
The Gathering Place in Cleveland. They're not just breast, they're a cancer center, and they help families and the cancer patients themselves get through their challenges. They're a wonderful group. I used them to get my wig back in the day. And I think it's going to be very enlightening for everyone. And if you want to help a group, this is the way to go. So they're wonderful.
Well, we will talk again next week.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your holidays.
Absolutely. Take care now.
Blessings.